Y&R Spoilers reveal the truth about Kyle's past that Cole cannot accept. Cole is not a man who easily accepts the ambiguities in his daughter's life, especially when Clare increasingly has feelings for Kyle, a boy from the Abbott family, a family famous not only for its wealth but also for countless secrets and conflicts in the past. With the instinct of a father who has experienced many losses and bitterness, Cole quietly observes every move in Clare's life, watching for even the smallest signs that can affect his daughter's future happiness. Therefore, when he discovers that Kyle appears more and more in Clare's life, Cole cannot sit still. He decides to learn more about this man himself, because he understands that a wrong choice can cause Clare to fall into the same pain as what he experienced with Victoria in the past. No one knew that behind Cole's calm exterior was determination and simmering fear. He began to secretly collect information related to Kyle from all sources, from people who used to work at Genoa to old friends of the Abbott family. During the investigation, Cole was even more shocked when he accidentally turned over the dark pages of Kyle's past, the overlapping love relationships, the times he stumbled before temptation, the fierce confrontations with his own father, and especially the business scandals that Kyle had been involved in but was always protected by his family with power and money. Cole realized that behind that elegance and sophistication, Kyle was always caught up in the vortex of power struggles, the type of man who did not easily commit to anyone when he still had too many internal conflicts. Gradually, the secrets Cole discovered made him more worried about Clare's future. What's even more terrifying is that among these secrets, there are things that if Clare knew, would completely destroy the image she had built of Kyle for so long. Cole hesitated between keeping quiet to let his daughter choose her own happiness, or revealing everything to save Clare from a future emotional tragedy. In the end, his fatherly instincts won out. Cole couldn't bear the thought of Clare suffering if she fell deeper into a risky love. One emotional night, Cole sought out Clare, trying to stay calm when talking, but his eyes clearly showed the seriousness of the problem. He told Clare everything he knew, hiding nothing, hoping she could consider carefully before going too far. Cole's revelations were like a heavy blow to Clare's psychology. She never thought Kyle had so many shocking secrets. Feelings of loss, disappointment and hurt made Clare sit silently, her mind and heart in turmoil. Clare knew that her father only wanted the best for her, but she also understood that no one was perfect, everyone had their own past. However, the worry about whether Kyle would really change, and whether he could bring her lasting happiness, still haunted her. After many sleepless nights, Clare finally decided to talk frankly with Kyle. She did not accuse, did not blame, but just wanted to know that he could be honest with her about everything, even the worst things in the past. Kyle was used to confrontations, but this time, the seriousness in Clare's eyes made him feel truly worried. He realized that if he was not honest, he would lose Clare forever. However, Kyle's pride and defensive instincts made him hesitant. He could not easily expose all his flaws, especially when they could be misunderstood or exploited by people like Cole or other enemies. Feeling that hesitation, Clare understood that there were things Kyle was not ready to share. Too disappointed, she decided to say goodbye, no matter how much her heart ached. This shock caused Kyle to fall into a state of extreme confusion. He did not believe Clare could leave him so quickly, especially when they had experienced so many beautiful memories. The feeling of betrayal, loss, and fear of not being able to control his own future flared up, pushing Kyle into a state of emotional imbalance. Instead of silently accepting, Kyle tried to find a way to hold on. He rushed to see Clare, tried to explain, pleaded, and even angrily blamed Cole for interfering too deeply in their private matters. The confrontation between Kyle and Cole became fierce, each defending their point of view, neither willing to give in. At this time, Kyle mistakenly believes that he has complete control over Audra, thinking that with just one smart move, he can defeat her, turning Audra into a pawn in his hands. However, he is completely unaware that Audra is also secretly planning for herself, and her ultimate goal is not only Kyle but also Victor, the person she wants to please and prove her true ability. Audra takes advantage of Kyle's half-hearted trust, gradually leading him into invisible traps, turning Kyle into a tool to achieve a greater goal. This confrontation is not only personal but also symbolic of the battle for power, ambition, and the price each character pays in the scheming context of Genoa City. While Kyle and Audra struggle with each other, gradually penetrating deeper into Victor's plan, Clare and Holden gradually become intermediaries, both observers and those who decide whether to intervene or let things go as they please. The appearance of Cole is like a highlight that creates a new spiral, pushing the characters into an unpredictable position and forcing them to choose between personal feelings and cold calculations. The war breaks out when Clare suddenly says goodbye to Kyle, not only the end of a stormy love story but also the beginning of a series of conflicts, a chain reaction that leads to a series of other consequences. Kyle falls into a state of loss of control, sinking deeper into plans with Audra, regardless of the consequences. Clare tries to stay calm, while facing conflicting emotions, disappointment, anxiety, and the pain of separation. Holden silently observes everything, preparing for the next move. Cole still can't stop tormenting himself about whether he was right to interfere with his daughter's happiness, but deep down, he knows that only the truth can save Clare from the deepest pain. These changes have made the atmosphere in Genoa City more suffocating than ever. Everyone understands that once the secrets are exposed, the consequences will be out of control. Will Clare steadfastly overcome everything, or will she collapse before the painful truths? Will Kyle accept to let go, or will he fight to the end to win back love? Will Audra succeed in her plot, or will she eventually become a victim of the dangerous game she initiated? Can Cole really protect his daughter from the emotional tragedy he feared? Whose side will Holden stand on when everything explodes? Each character, each decision, each secret is gradually revealed, pushing everything to the limit of endurance, trust, and betrayal. That's the never-ending nature of the young and the restless, where the smallest choice can lead to a never-ending storm. Victor has always been a man feared by the entire Genoa City, not only because of his wealth but also because of his sharp intellect, coldness, and ability to manipulate everyone who stands in front of him. Over the years, the nickname Mustache has become a symbol of power that no one dares to take lightly. Anyone who is ambitious and wants to compete for power in Genoa City must consider carefully before entering a game with Victor, because just one wrong move can cost them both their career and honor. Audra, despite having experienced many storms, is still young compared to Victor in terms of viciousness and experience. However, caught up in the vortex of power and ambition, Audra believes that she can play a double game with Victor and still leave intact, with the reward of power and recognition. In recent days, Audra has been meeting Victor frequently, discussing a second deal, hoping to gain more benefits for herself. She is confident in her shrewdness and ability to hide her emotions, believing that she can both cooperate and control Victor in her own way, without revealing any flaws. But Audra does not know that, for Victor, every game has been calculated in advance, every move of the opponent is just a small piece in the overall strategy he has drawn up. Meanwhile, Nate is still the man who loves Audra, always wants to protect and shelter her. Although there have been storms and misunderstandings between them, Nate's feelings are still deep, and he always has absolute trust in Audra. However, Nate is completely unaware of the increasingly close relationship between Audra and Victor, as well as the dangerous plans she is being caught up in. If Nate knew, he certainly would not be able to sit still, because he clearly understands that Victor is the type of person who can drown anyone just to protect his own interests. He had seen many people fail, lose everything when they dared to confront or even cooperate superficially with Victor. Nate would never accept Audra's reckless bet on her future, honor, and even safety in the hands of a snake like Victor. However, because of love, because of trust, Nate never asked deeply, and Audra still kept the man beside her a secret, continuing to rush into this increasingly dangerous game. But what few people know is that Victor has never truly placed his trust in anyone outside of his family. Those who cooperate with him, if not absolutely obedient, will soon become sacrifices for the cold plans he has outlined. This deal with Audra is no exception. Victor saw ambition and intelligence in Audra, but he also realized that she was someone who could easily be caught up in the illusions of power and lose the necessary caution. Therefore, Victor secretly planned to use Audra as a tool to achieve a greater goal, while putting Kyle in a weak position, so that in the end, no one but Victor would be the real winner. Victor cleverly set up a new game, in which Audra was positioned as the one to lure Kyle, making him believe that he had a chance to start a relationship with her again. Audra, who already had a personal connection with Kyle, easily created meaningful encounters, hints about the future, and actions that made Kyle waver between the past and the present. Victor's goal was not to truly reunite Audra and Kyle, but to make Clare, Kyle's current lover, reconsider, doubt, become jealous, and eventually, end her relationship with Kyle. Victor believes that by simply creating a picture of emotional chaos, Kyle will no longer be able to focus on his business plans or may be removed from the Abbott and Newman family circle of power, just as Victor desires. Audra, despite being chosen as the muse in this plan, is unaware that she is just a pawn on Victor's chessboard. She thinks she is in control, confident that she can manipulate Kyle's emotions, guide him in the direction she needs, and keep her relationship and secret agreements with Victor a secret. But in reality, the deeper Audra gets into this game, the more she is drawn into Victor's cold, cruel calculations without realizing it. Kyle, who has experienced many ups and downs in love, has been hurt by unfulfilled relationships, and does not easily trust anyone but himself. However, under Audra's subtle attacks, sometimes gentle, sometimes strong, sometimes weak and in need of protection, Kyle begins to falter. He could no longer maintain absolute focus on Clare, but was often pulled back to the past with Audra, with memories that had not faded, emotions that had made both of them unable to let go. This inadvertently created cracks in the relationship between Kyle and Clare, causing Clare to gradually lose faith in their future together. Clare, although strong and rational, is also a sensitive and profound woman. She soon realized the changes in Kyle's actions and emotions, and was even more painful when she felt herself gradually being pushed out of the heart of the person she loved. Clare tried to understand, tried to hold on, but the more she did, the worse things became. That was when Victor, with his subtle, skillful actions, revealed information about the relationship between Kyle and Audra, like a perfect coincidence, helping Clare see clearly the picture he had drawn. Clare was in pain, desperate, and finally decided to let go, ending everything with Kyle in a broken, helpless state of mind. As Victor had predicted, the sudden shock of the breakup had left Kyle in a state of confusion and disorientation. He didn't understand why everything had collapsed so quickly, why his feelings for Clare could be broken by a few seemingly trivial events. Kyle began to fall into a spiral of regret, self-blame, and resentment towards those around him, especially Audra, who had dragged him back to the past only to have everything fall apart. Audra, for her part, also didn't expect things to happen so quickly and dramatically. She had hoped to control the game, to be able to turn the tide in her favor, but in the end, all she got was the feeling of being betrayed and taken advantage of by the very people she thought she was in control of. As for Victor, like a talented director, he sat calmly watching the chess pieces move exactly as planned. He doesn't care about Clare's pain, nor does he care about Kyle's downfall or Audra's disappointment. For Victor, they are all necessary links in a larger goal. To protect his position as the king, eliminate potential threats, and keep Newman Enterprises and his family at the top of Genoa City. For Nate, when he learns the truth about what Audra has done and the shady connection between her and Victor, he feels deeply betrayed. Love turns to disappointment, and the trust he once had in Audra is quickly replaced by suspicion and hurt. Nate confronts Audra, asking her to choose between her risky career and true love. Audra, pushed to the edge, is forced to face herself. Does she really want to continue engaging in endless power games, or will she choose to leave everything behind to find herself and the values she once forgot? Kyle, Audra, Clare, Nate, and Victor are all caught up in an unpredictable chain of events, with betrayals, losses, inner struggles, and the rise of cold calculations. Who will be the winner in this game? Or will they all end up being victims of Genoa City's own ambition, intrigue, and ruthlessness? Once again, Victor proves that he is the one who never gives up in any game of chess. Those who once thought they could beat him realize too late that, to Victor, nothing is impossible, and every betrayal, every failure of others only strengthens his power and absolute position. And so, the endless cycle of drama, power, love and betrayal in Genoa City continues. Kyle was once a typical son of the Abbott family, intelligent, ambitious but also full of internal conflicts and often caught up in his own mistakes. After the upheavals, betrayals and emotional and professional setbacks, Kyle realized that he had strayed too far from the core values that Jack, the father he had been estranged from, always reminded him of. This return was not just an impulsive decision to escape the past, but a journey to atone, to regain the balance and trust that had been broken between him and his loved ones. In the first days of his return, Kyle chose to silently observe and listen more than speak. He clearly saw the fatigue of Jack, the father who was once strong and unyielding but now stained by time with the burdens of the company and family. Jack, despite his heavy heart for Jabot, still took the time to sit down and gently remind Kyle of the core values that an Abbott must uphold: integrity, responsibility, and most importantly, loyalty to his family. Jack never forbade Kyle from pursuing his ambitions, but he understood the price of overcalculation. He warned his son that every wrong path would leave wounds, not only for himself but also for those he loved. However, Kyle's personality was a combination of youthful enthusiasm, pride, and wounds that had never fully healed. He listened to his father, but deep down he still wanted to prove himself, to erase the suspicious eyes of society and especially of the Abbott family about a spoiled brat who only knew how to enjoy himself and ruin everything. Kyle's return to Jack at Jabot, in fact, brought new energy to the company. They coordinated well in important meetings, solved financial crises together and continuously launched product innovation initiatives to compete with Newman Enterprises, the Abbott family's archenemy. However, that initial success was quickly threatened by the ghost of the past. Memories of Audra, the ambitious woman, who was his partner and lover, and also the traitor who caused him to lose both his career and his love, always haunted Kyle in every decision. Although Kyle tried to ignore it, he still could not escape the feeling of defeat and deception, and that urged him to find every way to retaliate, to prove that he was not someone who could be easily manipulated. He secretly planned to approach Audra, pretending to want to make peace, listening to her thoughts like an old friend, while in fact he wanted to collect evidence, to bring her down in front of everyone, especially Victor, who had repeatedly used Audra as a pawn on the chessboard of power against the Abbott family. Jack clearly felt Kyle's psychological insecurity. Although he didn't know all the details, Jack still had a hunch that his son was falling into the trap of revenge instead of focusing on long-term goals. One day, in the familiar office at Jabot, Jack gently talked to Kyle about the meaning of forgiveness and the value of leaving the past behind. He reminded him, "Audra cannot hurt you unless you allow her or you make a stupid mistake. It's better to focus on work, because only success and integrity are the answers that make the enemy feel defeated." In fact, Jack was also under great pressure from Victor. The feud between Newman and Abbott had never subsided. Victor, using classic but powerful tricks, continuously sought to monopolize the market, sabotaged Jabot's big contracts, putting financial pressure on Jack and Kyle's shoulders. This inadvertently made Kyle even more obsessed with regaining the advantage over his arch-rival. When he learned that Victor was using Audra as a card to manipulate internal relationships, Kyle became even more determined to drag Audra into a new fight, even though he knew he was playing with fire. However, Kyle's excessive focus on revenge against Audra caused him to gradually neglect the important issues at Jabot. In meetings with the board of directors, he often appeared distracted, repeatedly reacting emotionally to opposing opinions instead of coming up with reasonable solutions. Important financial reports were delayed, new product development projects were constantly stalled because Kyle spent too much time gathering information about Audra, organizing secret meetings, and playing psychological tricks to make her lose her guard. Jack, despite repeated reminders, still could not prevent his son from falling into the spiral of revenge. Audra, for her part, quickly noticed the change in Kyle's attitude. She was an experienced woman, familiar with the psychological tricks of the harsh business world. Audra was not easily fooled. She even skillfully turned the situation around, turning seemingly harmless encounters into opportunities to sow doubt, cause internal divisions within Jabot, and even intentionally revealed false information to cause Kyle to lose his way and make mistakes in strategic decisions. Kyle was increasingly drawn into Audra's psychological traps without realizing it, leading to inaccurate decisions, wasting Jabot's resources and shaking his own position in the eyes of shareholders and the board of directors.